Hey now, we are getting over, and I am the Silver King, Adam Silverstein, here to lead you through these hard times. With your 2026 NXT Vengeance Day instant analysis. That's right, Getting Over is back once again, just minutes after NXT Vengeance Day went off the air to break down everything that happened on NXT's first premium live event of 2026, the only such show before the WrestleMania weekend program, NXT Stand and Deliver. The Silver King has a ton of performance-enhancing audio to deliver into your ear holes over the next 45 minutes. Before we get to all of that, allow me to remind you that the Getting Over Wrestling podcast
is all about Defy.
So head over to Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Leave a 5-star rating on Apple. Take a little extra time. Leave a 5-star written review. If you do, we will read it live right here on the show. Also, don't forget to follow us on social media at Getting Overcast on Twitter and Blue Sky. You get episode drops, news, analysis, highlights. You can send in questions and comments for the show, and you can vote in pre- and post-show polls surrounding every premium live event. We factor your grades into our final grade here at the end of the instant analysis. So again, across the board, follow us at Getting Overcast. When you subscribe on YouTube, you can listen to the podcast and you can watch full-length video interviews, and we anticipate having a number of those on the road to WrestleMania 42. Normally, at this part of an instant analysis, the Silver King would crack open a cold one and enjoy as we break down everything that happened on the show, except Silver King is doing this solo. Vintage Chris Vanini is not joining for the NXT PLE breakdown. As such, I don't want to open a beautiful craft beer and have it go to waste while I pontificate for an extended period of time. We're not going to do that. We're going to save it, keep it in the refrigerator. We'll have plenty of opportunities to use them throughout the year, of course. WWE WrestleMania 42 coming out in just under 6 weeks. Let's not waste any time. Let's move right into the 2026 edition of NXT Vengeance Day. For those of you who may be listening to an instant analysis for the first time, we're going to break down every single match on the card, tell you what happened in the match, the take on it, what we expect to happen moving forward in the world of NXT. We'll give you a match grade, and at the end of the show, we'll give you an overall grade for NXT Vengeance Day. Kicking off where NXT Vengeance Day concluded, the NXT title was on the line. Joe Hendry defending against Ricky Saints. Backstage earlier in the show, Saints asked Ethan Page why he wasn't out there during the main event on Tuesday to get his back as promised. Page said that he needed to clear his mind coming off losing the North American Championship. But when Saints was explaining how important it was for him to win the NXT title back, Page was staring off into the distance, clearly remembering his run atop the brand and how important the title was to him. Ethan promised he would come out and help Ricky nonetheless. As mentioned, this was the main event. Hendry's foot got caught in the ropes early. Saints took the ropes to his crotch not long after. He threw Hendry into the steel steps, hit a basement dropkick in the corner. Saints did his own emote and then Hendry's emote, getting penalized with a spear when he turned around. Hendry ran through his signatures and his emote, catching Ricky flying for a powerbomb, but Saints answered with an air raid crash, crossface, and chokehold with a body scissors. Hendry powered out into a suplex, following with an attitude adjustment and an avalanche fall-away slam. Saints nicely countered standing ovation, landing a pump knee and an arm lock DDT. That's when Page came out. He grabbed the NXT title, becoming fixated on it. Saints landed a spear on Hendry, with Page throwing the title in the ring. It was tough to tell whether it slid too far or he meant to give it to Joe instead, but he threw it pretty damn hard. The referee pulled it away from Hendry, though. That gave Saints an opening for a blatant low blow and a Revolution DDT for a false finish. Saints escaped standing ovation, with each guy nearly taking out the referee one after another. Hendry, though, was able to land a mule kick low blow as a perfectly fair retaliation, following with standing ovation to retain the title. Page put his arm around Saints, carried him out to the ring backstage to end it, and Ricky didn't attack him or think anything was wrong, at least in that moment. This was far exceeding my expectations, and it still did in the end, but it slowed down a bit with the introduction to Page, the title, the low blows. Hendry was completely justified responding accordingly, and there was never a thought he would lose the title so soon after winning it, both coming into the match and during the match. Clearly, the idea is going to be running a triple threat for this title at Stand and Deliver, Paige becoming obsessed with regaining his stature on the brand with the NXT title after that tremendous North American title reign. And that's perfectly good booking. It was just a bit of a shame that I had no belief this was going to be a great match. It was on its way to being one, and then it ended less than clean. So that's always something that, to quote Kenny KGB, leaves you feeling so unsatisfied at the end of a show. You always want that main event to completely deliver and give you that big moment. And when it doesn't, okay, it moves the storyline forward. That's totally fine, especially because the rest of the card was pretty much a banger. But at the same time, when your expectations are low and then you start raising them because of what you're getting, you hope it ends on the same, point at the same level. And it didn't get there. Overall grade for the match, I'm kind of back and forth. I'll say 3.75 stars, B+. There was absolutely nothing wrong with it. But the finish as it was presented makes it tough to go even into that lower A range. We had Jada Parker against Blake Monroe in a street fight. This opened the show. While both of them were wearing black, and that was annoying at first, it actually worked in this case. Monroe looked great not wearing her normal gear, which to this point has mostly been white, sometimes like pinkish. Parker, and red as well for Blake. Parker got a louder beat for her entrance theme, still no lyrics, and it's still incredibly basic. It's kind of funny that someone just picked a new generic track and figured, okay, yeah, that's good enough. Booker T was making a huge deal about her new entrance music on commentary. And I was like, am I missing lyrics? Am I missing some theme to this? Or is it just literally another stock beat that they chose instead of the one they were using before? It was literally a new beat. It did hit harder. It was better because the other one was so low tone that it was like ridiculous. How is this a wrestling entrance theme? At the same time, this still needs significant work. Blake got dropped headfirst into a chair that was propped in the ropes with two kendo sticks serving as legs. I have legitimately never seen that spot before in a wrestling match. She answered with kendo stick shots, even utilizing one for a skull-crushing finale, completely missed by commentary. Monroe grabbed Parker's arm from under her body for a bunch of headshots into the top turnbuckle. Then she put her in a tree of woe, standing chairs in front and behind of her body before mocking her LeBron James emote and hitting a hip attack into them. Blake next landed a right hand wrapped in a pearl necklace and did a crossface with a kendo stick. Jada stole it away and wore that stick out on Blake with some stiff-ass shots before hitting a flying blockbuster. Monroe missed a shot with a brick, took another stiff shot, this time with a chair, to her back. Parker then put her on a table, flying off the ring with the bottom rope, doing a springboard teardrop through the table ringside. Parker added Hypnotic in the ring for a flat 2 count that was supposed to be closer to a 3, I imagine. My guess is Blake heard the referee hit the mat, thought that was 1, and tried to kick out at 2.9. Blake ran Jada headfirst into a couple kendo sticks propped in the ropes. One of them snapped right down the middle. I thought Parker got cut on her head, but she didn't. Very lucky. A pump knee followed. Blake then poured out a whole bag of fake diamonds in the ring, picked up a few of them, threw them in Jada's face. Parker sold them like she got sand put in her eyes. Blake then took her off the ropes with a hurricanrana into the diamonds and added Glamour Shot, her DDT finisher, for the win. Squeaky clean and statement making. Outside of the early Hypnotic kickout, this was close to flawless. Probably Blake's second best WWE match next to the Heatwave bout with Jordynne Grace. And if you thought this was better than that, I totally accept it. And maybe on rewatch, I'll feel the same way. Blake badly needed this win after losing that feud to Jordynne. And then given everything that's happened recently with her dropping the North American title, not really getting matches, the whole 9 yards. I went 3.75 stars, B+. I could possibly see a small upgrade to a 4-star A- grade. Most impressive is that there were some truly inventive spots during this match. And not only that, they laid in some of those weapon shots hard on one another. You saw glimpses of Mariah May, the woman from hell here, though she's obviously never going to truly hit that type of viciousness because WWE doesn't do blood and gore, glass, and stuff like that. The truth about Blake Monroe is this. The longer she is removed from the memory of Mariah May, the better it's going to be for her career. And, she's less than a year into that right now. So give it another year, give it another 2 years. Let Blake Monroe be Blake Monroe, not a comparison to Mariah May, because that's what everyone is hung up on right now. And that's not particularly fair to her, nor is it necessarily fair to WWE because they are not able to do with Blake what AEW was able to do and decided to do, I should say, with Mariah. Most important in this match, though, is that both women came out looking great. It was really tough to do. It was our biggest concern going in. This was a match. Jada had just returned. How do you have her lose her return match? Blake could not lose. How do you have her take an L? Well, you don't, is the answer. Parker got that loss. The only thing I really would have changed here, the diamonds coming out of the bag, they were too big and therefore looked too fake. I would have liked to have seen the diamonds smaller. And then it would have been beneficial if there was like dust around them to some degree, that when Blake picked up a handful of them, she didn't just throw, 8 plastic rocks at Parker's face. She was actually throwing dust there as well. She could have sold being blinded a little bit. I mean, she did anyway, but it's tough to buy that as much when it's big plastic rocks getting thrown at your face. The selling of the blindness would have worked a little bit better, and it would have made it all even more exciting than it was. But again, as it was executed, they still did a great job. North American Championship, Izzy Dame defending against Tatum Paxley. This was the mid-show match. Great visual contrast, and Dame upped her makeup game to match her gear, which was cool. Tatum hit a cannonball off the steel steps early. Dame countered Cemetery Drive, and there was tons of heat for her throughout as she overpowered Paxley. Izzy locked in a Lion Tamer. Really smart move to add to her arsenal given her size. Tatum hit an Enziguri ringside to Izzy as she was hanging over the ropes. That followed a canvas-based version of Booker T's Harlem Hangover, which was awesome, and Booker T noted it immediately on commentary. That was cool. Dame avoided a 450, landed a shotgun dropkick that almost looked like a Claymore. Tatum then hit I Drive, Izzy's finisher, and a 450 splash that unfortunately landed knees first on the canvas. That was a false finish. Dame again avoided Cemetery Drive, catching Paxley with a boot while she was on the top rope before hitting a flip over cutter. Tatum answered with a tremendous tope sunset flip powerbomb. Paxley got distracted by the calling ringside during a 10 count, barely beating it back inside, immediately eating a spike spinebuster for a false finish. The heels threw a fit as the crowd rallied. Tatum back to her feet. She purposefully and Izzy accidentally punched Sean Spears in the face. He was on the ring apron, fell down. Then Paxley flipped out of a landed codebreaker, sold it like an absolute badass, hit a freaking capoeira kick, I believe that's how you say it, and then Cemetery Drive to win the North American Championship. What an absolute unabashed banger. There are matches that build, and then there are matches that build. This MFR built. The crowd was outstanding from start to finish, and they truly believed that countout was going to happen. Great sequence there. Terrific storytelling in that this was not just Tatum versus Izzy, but Tatum versus the calling. The guys got involved in multiple spots, but despite one distraction, Paxley was able to overcome not just her singular enemy, but the group that screwed her over. Beyond that, this was the best match of Izzy's career by margin. And the second awesome bout that these two have fought together, this was better than the first one. Following 2 no DQ matches with this kind of straight wrestling really speaks to their talent, the production, how well this was paced and executed. It wound up being the match of the night, 4.25 stars A. I am going to rewatch it. It's going to take a lot for an NXT match in front of that small of a crowd for a mid-card title to get a higher grade, a 4.5, let's say. But I'm going to rewatch it. Taking down notes, I was enthralled by this match. Being able to do so, hands off the keyboard, just watching it on my screen, maybe I'll feel even stronger about it. We talk all the time about Tatum being a great character actress. That's because she gets more time to work as a character than she does as a wrestler. Every time that bell rings, though, we get reminded she is fantastic between the ropes. I know everyone is out there praising Kendall Gray, and Kendall Gray is great. She's going to be amazing. She will be a women's champion in WWE. Guess what? Tatum, she can be as well. She just needs to be booked that way. Paxley has a great arsenal of moves. She gets around the ring effortlessly. She has a legitimate opportunity to be the future of this division if she is given an actual chance. And what's more important than her skill, which is important, and her character work, which is important, it's that she connects intimately with the crowd. It is natural. It is not forced. Tatum Paxley is a star in this company, and it's high time that everyone understand that and lean into it. Hopefully, her winning the North American Championship is the start of that. It has been far too long for Paxley to get to this point. Now that she's here, it should be a quick rise into a longer-term main event role, followed by a main roster call-up sooner than later. Tatum is the most over person in NXT, female or male. And you know what? She may be the most complete wrestler in the entire locker room, along with Ethan Page, obviously. The move might be Paxley and Monroe at Stand and Deliver for the North American Championship. Pure babyface versus pure heel. If so, that could be awesome, and they have plenty of time to build that match. Robert Stone hit the ring to make an announcement about the NXT Championship. JC Jane came out with Fatal Influence doing her normal, pretty solid shtick, bragging about how she's dominated the brand and been an incredible champion, despite everyone believing her to be a fluke. JC pointed out how she went from kickoff show tag team match at Stand and Deliver last year to entering the same show this year with a dominant title reign. Jane then said she should be the main event of Stand and Deliver, and then she'll go on and main event WrestleMania next year. JC bragged about beating Sol Ruca in 6 seconds, but as she kept droning on, Stone cut her off. Zarya entered wearing a Sol's X shirt. So if she's saying she's Sol's X, does that mean they were dating?
I'd be trying to get it in as much as possible, too.
She called JC delusional, blaming Sol for all of her ills. Fallon Henley spoke up, saying Zaruka is not their problem, before reminding how she helped Jane win the title without complaining afterward. Laney Reen tried to say something next, but that did not work at all. Production missed Ruka's cue, so there was a really odd delay. Sol basically called JC Fugazi because she's in the top spot, but desperately is trying to convince others of her greatness. Ruka said that she's better than Jane and not only knows Zarya's entire arsenal, but how to break her heart. Again, heel shit from Sol, spoken as a babyface. Stone ultimately made a triple threat match for the title in 2 weeks, live from Houston. Influence attacked Ruka. Zarya pulled them all off to go after Jane. Sol again tried the double Soul Snatcher, but this time she only hit Zarya because Influence saved Jane. Influence attacked the faces and stood tall at the end. We all rightly assumed the triple threat would be set for Stand and Deliver, so running it in 2 weeks on TV, that is definitely a surprise, though it does open the door for Sol Zarya to not only be on Stand and Deliver, but actually to main event that show. JC said as much about herself and effectively the women's title in her promo. That was a nice touch earlier in the segment, almost as a way to prime us for the women main eventing Stand and Deliver. Jane was the standout on the mic as usual. The others paled in comparison. What Fallon said was pure facts, but it also continued her looking extremely weak, allowing JC to walk all over her when, as we have said on this show many, many times, she's the better wrestler in more ways than one. Now you're going to say, Silver King, how can you say that? Jane has done a great job as champion. She has. There's no question about it. Fallon's actually a better wrestler. And I'd say she's just as good of a character. You're just not being allowed to see it. Why is Henley's character okay with Jane dominating the title for this long while she's holding the stupid Speed Championship? She shouldn't be. It's really silly. This went on longer than necessary, but it was eating up an entire PLE segment, which is why it was extended on TV. This would have been a few minutes shorter, and it probably would have been better. Right now, my expectation is the title does change hands on TV, allowing a Zaruka match and main event at Stand and Deliver. JC does not need to bring the title into that show, and really, she should be fighting Fallon and ending that faction. I'd like to see Jane lose it, Henley criticize her, them go after each other, break up Fatal Influence, and everyone moves on. That's at least the way the Silver King would book it. Lola Vice fought Kalani Jordan in an NXT Underground match. Jordan lost a full second plus on her clapping entrance this week. Why they can't line that up, I have no earthly idea. She looked great in fighting gear with her hair done up, though. Vice handed her AAA title to her father, who was sitting in the front row. The visuals were on point for this, with the lowered lights, some lasers, tons of people ringside. Though it was funny that some of the women were in dresses at an underground fight. Couple extended mat wrestling sequences early, but when Vice started kicking, Lonnie slammed her injured hand into the ring post, wailed on her, working the injured appendage extensively, including with a trap suplex. Lola got a second wind, escaping Lonnie's onslaught before landing more than a dozen kicks, booting Jordan in the chest, off the canvas, into 3 different people ringside. Vice started roundhouse kicking randoms ringside as Jordan got into a screaming match with Lola's father. After Lonnie completely flipped out of a move, Lola landed a massive spinning back fist, immediately jumping on her for a hammer fist and ground and pound, getting the TKO stoppage victory. Then Lola shook her culo right over Lonnie's dead body. Those consecutive sequences made me go from, oh shit, to laughing out loud. Of the non-main events, this match was the weakest, quote unquote, but given the stipulation and Jordan not being a natural in that world, it was always going to be a step down from a regular match. The intensity was nevertheless a 10. Lola was the obvious incorrect winner, and Lonnie was not hurt at all in defeat. She got beaten by someone with an MMA background in an MMA-esque match with an MMA trainer father. I'm at 3.5 stars and a B for this. I don't know that they could have done any better one-on-one in an underground match, but we have seen many better underground matches. Therefore, this one just did not live up to those, nor did it live up to much else of what we got on the card, despite, again, the energy being at a 10. Like, watching this, you were excited and engaged, and it was great. But again, as a match, we're grading it objectively. A funny bit, though, was Lola's father may have been the best character involved. He acted from start to finish as if this was real. Like, he seemed like he was going to jump over the barricade at one point and attack Jordan. I kind of wanted Lonnie to smack him and send him off the deep end. That way his wife had to hold him back. Like, that just would have made it even better. And they should have gone to that length, but it was okay that they did not. And the final match that we're going to discuss, Tony D'Angelo against Dion Lennox. This began in the parking lot as advertised, with Dark State attacking a guy who was dressed as D'Angelo, driving a convertible into a circle of cars. That allowed Tony D to attack from behind with a crowbar, get the upper hand, and close the garage door behind the rest of Dark State as he fought Lennox into the backstage area. I'm thinking, this is ridiculous. There's clearly many other entrances. Dark State can definitely get back into the arena. What the hell did that accomplish? And that was correct. It didn't accomplish anything. It played out a minute later. They all came through and attacked D'Angelo anyway. Security ultimately pulled them off as the referee screamed, "You guys need to get into the ring so this match can start." D'Angelo avoided a locker getting dropped on his body before Lennox speared him over a road case, only to take a header into a road case himself. Despite needing to go to the ring, they wound up back outside, where Out the Mud prevented Lennox from basically murking D'Angelo. He was swinging a crowbar overhand, ready to hit him in the head. A brawl ensued as the guys finally fought their way into the ring. D'Angelo first put Lennox into a wall, leaving a dent, and then speared him through the base of the crow's nest, the opposite way it normally happens, before the bell finally rang. Once that happened, D'Angelo dominated with German suplexes and a great torture rack neckbreaker, which really could be and perhaps should be his finisher. Dion dodged Tony D into the steel steps. The face hit the metal with a surprising amount of force, considering this was a mid-card match on a B-level PLE. Lennox literally chucked D'Angelo over the barricade into the crowd, upwards. Then he brought him back over into the ringside area with a superplex into the announce table. He followed with a great rope-assisted seated Liger bomb that should probably be his finisher. D'Angelo ultimately countered Lennox with a spear and added his spike spinebuster to win. Holy crap. You want to talk about exceeding expectations? I had serious trepidation going into this match, given it was starting in the parking lot, but it was not a parking lot brawl. I got to give credit where it's due to the creative team and the match producer too, because every hole I would have poked into the booking of a 1-on-4 exterior brawl was patched basically as soon as I was thinking it, as you heard me say earlier. This was perfectly structured. These guys beat the shit out of each other. The intensity was nonstop from the parking lot all the way to the final bell, and they wrestled in a way that you felt the disdain for one another come through the screen. That is really tough to do when you're talking professional wrestling. OTM interfering was convenient, okay, but they had been feuding with Dark State as of a few weeks ago. Perhaps most impressive from this match was what happened when these two got into and around the ring itself. There was no let up in intensity, as I said, but the skill Lennox actually flashed matched that of D'Angelo. The spots individually hit, they wrestled fluidly, and while there was never an inkling of D'Angelo losing, you still felt him earning the victory in the end. I'm at 4 stars, A-. There's a possibility I go up a 1/4 star on rewatch. I absolutely loved this match, and many of you, I'd say most of you, heard the Ultimate Preview. The 2 men's matches coming into the show. I had zero expectations for either of them. Both of them completely over-delivered. By the way, D'Angelo has hair, I want to say like mine. I think he has more curly hair. Mine's wavy. But when I was younger, during a certain period in my life, I tried to grow my hair out and wear it long. To the point that I even went to my mom's salon and got it straightened because it was so wavy that it would like curl up and it didn't look good. But that was the style back in the day. It was grunge. And even though I liked rap music, the part down the middle was what people wore. And I wanted to look cool and I tried to do it. But what happened is that my hair looked really good actually when it was gelled and wet and I, left the house. And then once it dried out, it looked frizzy and I looked insane. I looked like an idiot. It was stupid. That happened to D'Angelo during this match. He came out, his hair was wet, and you've seen him before where it's pulled back really tight in a bun or something like that. But as the match progressed, it dried out and it puffed away from his head and he looked insane. It gave his character this unique, compelling visual authority. And all I could think coming out of the match was, I really hope they leave his hair like that for future bouts because it adds this awesome visual element to his character. He can start slicked back and whatever, but don't do anything. Allow that to happen because by the end of that match, with his hair bouncing around and him doing high octane spears and spine busters and all that crazy shit, the German suplexes, he looked like an absolute beast out there. This was the best D'Angelo has ever looked as an in-ring competitor. And it's the brightest his future has ever appeared, which is saying something considering this gimmick got off to such a slow start. Later backstage, OTM clarified they were not helping D'Angelo, rather getting revenge on Dark State. They were refocusing on doing what was necessary to win the tag team titles. They had a couple great lines in this promo, and their passion was ridiculously high. This was easily the best OTM promo since they debuted, like a 7.5, maybe even an 8 out of 10 because of their passion. They've never previously been better than like a 4.5 or 5. That just speaks to how well they did in this particular moment. Birthright backstage gave Charlie Dempsey an ultimatum about joining their faction. He immediately denied them, despite Lexis King reminding that their fathers sacrificed everything for the business so they could have a leg up in their careers. He said all the influencers and college athletes, they see WWE as a side quest. Dempsey needs to embrace his past and become what he is supposed to be. Tavian Heights was there the entire time. And when the heels walked away, he suggested reuniting NQCC for one night only. That way Dempsey could get his lick back against the group. This was the best segment of the storyline arc to this point. Doing a tag team match, though, is a dead giveaway that Dempsey is going to join Birthright, turning on a babyface in Heights in order to do so, get the extra heat. Dempsey should be the leader of this faction. King should be the lieutenant. If they have King as the leader in this faction and Dempsey as the number 2 or just another guy, that's going to be a massive mistake. This was a nice hook for next Tuesday's NXT, and that being a go-home show for the women's triple threat, that's really interesting. They also announced that NXT Stand and Deliver is going to air on Peacock. That is a little bit surprising. I've reached out to a couple sources to try to determine what's happening there. And even beyond that, NXT is going to be running the theater at Madison Square Garden the Tuesday after WWE runs Monday Night Raw there on the road to WrestleMania. So that's really wrapping up everything else that was said throughout NXT on Saturday night. Now, in terms of our final grades for the show, Silver King on the Ultimate Preview was kind of down, both with the card and, again, as I mentioned earlier, my expectations overall. My pre-show expectation grade was an 85, a B, which is low in general for any show, but particularly for NXT because generally the cards are built in such a way that I have high anticipation going into them. So, I mean, I was down on the Ultimate Preview. You all heard it. And therefore, I can tell you, to my pleasant surprise, they completely blew away what I thought this show was going to be on Saturday night. And as such, this is going to be one of my greatest differentials between an expectation grade and a final grade. I'm going from an 85B all the way up to a 91 A-. And why am I doing that? Well, there were 5 matches on the card. All of them hit. The Izzy Dame and Tatum Paxley match, as I mentioned, was the star of the show. The 2 men's matches were way better than I thought they were going to be, particularly D'Angelo and Lennox. Blake Monroe got a necessary win, and Jada Parker was elevated despite losing, which is extremely tough to do. And NXT Underground was more than good enough for what it needed to be. And I spent about 2.5 hours watching this show. It was probably more like 2 hours and 20 minutes. None of the matches felt rushed. Everything hit to one degree or another. There was a big setup for television. And the most important thing when I watch any PLE or pay-per-view is I don't feel like my time was wasted. And I did not feel like that at all. It was well invested 2.5 hours, again, less than 2.5 hours, watching NXT Stand and Deliver on Saturday night. But that's the Silver Kings grade. Let's see how all of you felt. We posted our poll on social media at Getting Overcast, as I mentioned. There is technically still time in the poll, so chances are if you look at it, let's say on Sunday or Monday, the final numbers might be slightly different than what we are reading here. There's how much time? 30 minutes left in the poll as we tape this podcast. 60% of respondents are in the A+ to A range. 25% A- to B+, 11% B to B-, 4% C+ or lower. That averages out to a 93.66, rounding up to a 94 and a flat A. Now, I do believe that is slightly higher than it should be. I gave you my 91 if you were at 92 or 93. I'm not going to argue that much, but giving this a flat A grade to me is exaggerating a bit. I needed one more excellent match, at least, in order to get into that range. But I think the end result here is twofold. One, pretty universal agreement that this was a great show and a worthwhile use of our time as viewers. Secondly, through 2 months and a week, this is the best WWE Premium Live event of 2026. And while that's positive for NXT, that is problematic for WWE, considering the two that they have run are the Royal Rumble and Elimination Chamber, both of which fell far below expectation, and some of our expectations were rather muted for them even going in. So that's where WWE stands right now. NXT, a show that lost its 3 biggest male stars, that is clearly going through a transformation in its product right now, was able to put on a premium live event that top to bottom was more entertaining and exciting than what WWE did for 2 of its tentpole shows so far this year. Now, again, is it being graded on a curve? I wouldn't say that, but there is an expectation versus reality of what you should be getting from an NXT show. And there is a much higher expectation on what WWE should be delivering from Royal Rumble and Elimination Chamber. And this one exceeded that expectation, while those both, as I said, fell below. Well, that is how the cookie crumbles, and that wraps up our instant analysis of NXT Vengeance Day. We will have another 3-episode week coming your way. On Tuesday, we'll be back with an absolutely loaded WWE episode, headlined, of course, by Cody Rhodes winning back the WWE Championship over Drew McIntyre in the main event of SmackDown on Friday night. If I had more time and it wasn't so late, I'd give you a preview, of course, of my thoughts about that match. But there is a place where you can find those, because I did not mention earlier in the program that here at Getting Over,
I happen to love the number 5.
and I hope you do as well, because for $5 a month or $50 for the entire year, you can become an official Getting Overhead. Just visit buymeacoffee.com/gettingover. Sign up. You'll get bonus audio, the fastest 5 minutes in professional wrestling, instant reaction to every major show, and exclusive news analysis posts every week. It is there that Silver King recorded a 5-minute instant reaction to Cody becoming the new WWE champion. And if you don't subscribe, well, look, you don't have to. We would appreciate it if you did, because you are financially supporting the continuation of this podcast. We're ad-free, and all we do is love delivering performance-enhancing audio into your ear holes. So sign up, support us, get extra content, buymeacoffee.com/gettingover. Going back to what I was talking about, it's going to be a 3-episode week. The WWE episode is coming on Tuesday. On Thursday, we'll not only break down the week in NXT, we will have an AEW Revolution Ultimate Preview. And then on Saturday, we'll have an AEW Revolution Instant Analysis. That is the 3rd straight bonus episode week of the Getting Over Wrestling podcast. And hopefully Silver King can take a breath after that, because the road to WrestleMania 42 is going to get real intense coming up over the next 6 weeks. On the way out of this show, please allow me to remind you here at Getting Over,
It's all about the fight.
so head over to Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Leave a 5-star rating on Apple. Take a little extra time. Leave a 5-star written review. If you do, we will read it live right here on the show. And don't forget to follow us on social media at Getting Overcast on Twitter and Blue Sky. You get episode drops, news, analysis, highlights. You can send in questions and comments for the show. Anything you all did send in about NXT Vengeance Day, we'll talk about on Thursday. We'll do a quick second look about Vengeance Day at the start of the show. So send in comments, questions. I promise you we will address them on the program. But not only can you do all of that, you can vote in those pre and post show polls that we mentioned just a few moments ago. And when you subscribe to us on YouTube, you can not only listen to the podcast, you can also watch full-length video interviews across the board. Please follow us at Getting Overcast. All right, that is it for tonight. This is the Silver King, Adam Silverstein, signing off and leaving you with just 3 final words. Bye for now.